She sat quietly for years while the world tried to explain her son in headlines, numbers, controversies, and myths. People spoke loudly about rockets, electric cars, artificial intelligence, fortunes made and lost, risks taken, and rules broken. They argued about brilliance and ego, obsession and ambition. They debated whether genius excuses intensity, whether vision justifies sacrifice. Through all of it, she watched. She listened. And when she finally chose to speak, it wasn't to defend, attack, or correct the noise. It was to reveal the one thing almost everyone missed. She said the world keeps looking at outcomes instead of origins. They see the launches, the factories, the headlines, the sleepless nights, the relentless pace, and they assume that what drives a person like Elon is hunger for power or applause. But she said they never really asked what shaped him long before the world knew his name. They never paused to notice the quiet foundation beneath the noise. They missed the inner compass that existed before success, before validation, before anyone cared. She spoke about curiosity as something sacred, not strategic. She said her son wasn't obsessed with winning, he was obsessed with understanding. As a child, he didn't ask questions to impress adults or to appear clever. He asked because not knowing felt unbearable to him. When something didn't make sense, he couldn't just let it go. That discomfort with unanswered questions, she said, became the engine people later mislabeled as ambition. It wasn't about being first or richest or loudest. It was about resolving the tension between what is and what could be. She revealed that people misunderstand intensity. They think intensity is aggression or ego, but she described it as devotion. When Elon focused on something, he didn't half believe in it. He believed fully, sometimes painfully fully. That level of belief made him willing to endure what others would walk away from. While outsiders called it obsession, she saw it as loyalty to an idea. He didn't abandon problems when they became unpopular or exhausting. He stayed, even when it cost him comfort, approval, and peace. She said the world missed how much failure shaped him, not as trauma, but as training. Before the successes people love to quote, there were long stretches where nothing worked. Ideas collapsed. Money evaporated. Critics laughed. Friends doubted. She watched him sit in silence after devastating setbacks, not spiraling, not blaming, but recalibrating. He didn't ask, "Why is this happening to me?" He asked, "What is this teaching me?" That question, she said, mattered more than any privilege or opportunity he ever had. She revealed something softer too, something the world rarely associates with him. She said her son feels responsibility deeply. Not the surface-level responsibility of image, but the heavy, internal kind. When he believes something matters for humanity, that belief becomes a weight he carries every day. It keeps him awake. It pulls him forward even when he's exhausted. People see confidence, but she sees the burden behind it. The pressure of believing that if you don't act, something important might be lost. She said many people assume confidence means certainty, but she knows better. She's watched him doubt himself more than most people realize. He questions his decisions constantly. He replays conversations. He revisits assumptions. What looks like arrogance from the outside is often the courage to act despite doubt. He doesn't wait until fear disappears. He moves with it beside him. That, she said, is what people missed. Courage isn't loud. Sometimes it's just persistent. She talked about independence in a way that surprised many. She said he didn't grow up expecting rescue. He learned early that if he wanted something built, understood, or changed, he would have to engage fully with the process. That didn't make him cold, it made him capable. He learned how to sit with discomfort, how to solve problems without applause, how to trust his own reasoning even when it isolated him. The world calls that stubbornness. She calls it self-reliance. She revealed that compassion doesn't always look gentle. Sometimes compassion looks like refusing to accept systems that don't work. Sometimes it looks like pushing people harder than they want to be pushed because you see what's possible for them. She said her son isn't motivated by making people comfortable. He's motivated by making things better. That difference causes misunderstanding. But in his mind, comfort without progress is a slow kind of harm. She spoke about time, and how differently he experiences it. While others live in the present or the next few years, his mind stretches decades ahead. He feels future consequences as if they are already real. That makes him impatient with delay, inefficiency, and excuses. It also makes him willing to invest in outcomes he may never personally enjoy. People miss that long view, she said. They think it's about legacy, but it's about stewardship. She revealed that one of the most defining traits in her son is restraint, not excess. He doesn't chase luxury the way people expect. He doesn't measure life by indulgence. He simplifies so he can focus. He removes distractions not because he doesn't appreciate beauty, but because he values clarity more. The world confuses simplicity with eccentricity. She sees it as discipline. She said people often ask her how she feels about the criticism directed at her son. She smiles when she answers. She says criticism means someone is doing something that matters. If you're trying to change nothing, no one argues with you. If you're trying to change everything, everyone has an opinion. She's learned not to measure worth by applause or outrage. She measures it by intention and effort. She revealed something deeply personal when she spoke about love. She said her son loves intensely but not performatively. He doesn't express affection in rehearsed ways. He expresses it through commitment, through showing up when it's inconvenient, through solving problems for people he cares about. The world expects romance to look cinematic. He lives it as responsibility. That difference causes people to misread him. She talked about loneliness, not as tragedy, but as a byproduct of uncommon paths. When you think differently, you often walk alone. When you aim far ahead, you lose some companions along the way. She said she's watched him accept that reality without bitterness. He doesn't resent being misunderstood. He simply keeps going. That quiet acceptance, she said, is strength. She revealed that the one thing everyone missed is that nothing about his journey was accidental. Not the hardships. Not the controversies. Not the risks. Each phase shaped his capacity to carry the next one. The world wants simple explanations: genius, luck, privilege. She offers a more complex truth: relentless learning, deep responsibility, and the willingness to endure discomfort for something larger than oneself. She said if people really want to understand her son, they should stop asking how he succeeded and start asking what he refused to give up. He refused to give up curiosity when others settled for certainty. He refused to give up effort when others chose ease. He refused to give up belief when outcomes were uncertain. He refused to give up long-term thinking in a short-term world. She ended not with praise, but with an invitation. She invited people to look at their own lives differently. To ask themselves what they might build if they were less concerned with approval and more committed to purpose. To consider what problems they avoid because they're uncomfortable, and what might change if they stayed with them a little longer. She said the real message isn't about her son at all. It's about the cost of meaningful work and the quiet strength required to carry it, and as she spoke, it became clear why her words mattered. Not because they corrected the world's image of a famous man, but because they revealed a deeper truth about human potential. That what drives extraordinary outcomes is rarely glamour or ego. It's patience. It's responsibility. It's the courage to think long, work hard, and stand alone when necessary. She continued by explaining that people often misunderstand how discipline actually forms. They imagine it as something forced, something rigid, something imposed from the outside. But she said with her son it grew organically, almost quietly. Discipline wasn't about punishment or pressure, it was about respect for time. He understood early that time is the one resource you never get back, and wasting it felt almost immoral to him. That awareness shaped how he worked, how he thought, how he chose what deserved his attention. While others waited for motivation, he built habits that carried him forward even when motivation disappeared. She revealed that many people think confidence comes from praise. But in his case it came from testing ideas against reality. When something worked, he trusted it. When it failed, he adjusted. His confidence wasn't emotional, it was evidence-based. That's why criticism didn't destroy him. He didn't build his identity on approval. He built it on process. If someone disagreed, he didn't feel personally attacked. He simply asked whether their argument was true. If it was, he learned. If it wasn't, he moved on. The world mistook this detachment for coldness, but she said it was clarity. She spoke about pain, something few people associate with success stories. She said there were moments when the pressure nearly crushed him, when the weight of responsibility became almost unbearable. There were nights when sleep didn't come, mornings when exhaustion lingered, seasons when hope felt thin. But she said what separated him wasn't the absence of pain, it was his relationship with it. He didn't dramatize suffering, nor did he deny it. He treated it like information. Pain told him where systems were broken, where effort was required, where growth was unavoidable. She explained that people often assume visionaries are reckless, but she watched him calculate risk obsessively. He didn't jump blindly. He studied. He modeled outcomes. He prepared for worst-case scenarios. And when he still chose to move forward, it wasn't because he didn't see the danger. It was because he believed the risk of doing nothing was greater. That distinction, she said, is critical and often missed. Courage isn't ignorance of danger, it's informed commitment. She also spoke about humility, a word many would never associate with his public image. But she said humility doesn't always look like silence or softness. Sometimes humility looks like being willing to be wrong publicly, to fail visibly, to start again without pretending you had it all figured out. He didn't cling to ideas just to protect his ego. If something didn't work, he let it go. That willingness to release what no longer served the mission, she said, required a deep humility beneath the intensity. She revealed that one of the hardest things for him was watching people misunderstand his intentions. Not because he needed validation, but because misinterpretation slowed progress. When people assume motives that aren't true, they resist solutions that might help them. She said he struggled with that tension, knowing that clarity matters, but also knowing that explaining yourself endlessly steals energy from building. Over time, he chose action over explanation. The work, he believed, would eventually speak. She talked about how early exposure to complexity shaped him. He didn't grow up believing the world was simple or fair. He saw systems that rewarded the wrong behaviors and ignored the right ones. That awareness didn't make him cynical, it made him determined. If systems were flawed, they could be redesigned. If incentives were broken, they could be restructured. He didn't accept that's just how it is as an answer. The world often calls that disruptive. She calls it hopeful. She said people underestimate how much patience it takes to pursue massive goals. Not the patience of waiting, but the patience of repeating effort without immediate reward. Years of work can pass before progress becomes visible. Many quit in that invisible phase. He didn't. He learned to trust trajectories instead of moments. He understood that meaningful change compounds quietly before it explodes publicly. She revealed something subtle but powerful. He doesn't see himself as exceptional. He sees problems as solvable. That difference matters. When you believe you're special, failure threatens your identity. When you believe problems can be solved, failure becomes feedback. She said this mindset protected him from both arrogance and despair. Success didn't inflate him, and setbacks didn't define him. She spoke about criticism again, but this time with tenderness. She said words can wound, even when you're strong. She watched him absorb harsh judgments, misrepresentations, and ridicule. He didn't pretend they didn't hurt. He simply refused to let them decide his direction. He felt them, processed them, and then returned to work. That emotional regulation, she said, was one of his quiet superpowers. She revealed that what people often call sacrifice didn't feel like sacrifice to him. When something aligns deeply with your values, giving up alternatives doesn't feel like loss. It feels like focus. He didn't mourn the life he wasn't living. He committed to the one he believed mattered. That clarity simplified decisions others found agonizing. She said if there was one lesson she hoped people would take, it was this: stop romanticizing outcomes and start respecting endurance. Success is loud, but endurance is silent. Success is visible, but endurance happens when no one is watching. Her son's story, she said, isn't about brilliance appearing overnight. It's about staying when leaving would have been easier. Quieter, and more socially acceptable. She paused before adding one final thought in that moment. She said the world keeps asking how to become extraordinary, but the better question is how to remain committed when ordinary days pile up. Anyone can dream. Few can persist. Anyone can start. Few can stay. The thing everyone missed wasn't talent or ambition or luck. It was endurance, practiced daily, quietly, relentlessly. And with that, her message deepened, not as an explanation of a famous life, but as a mirror held up to anyone willing to look closely at their own. She ended by speaking about something even deeper than endurance: meaning. She said her son never chased success as an end in itself. Success, to him, was simply evidence that something was working. If it stopped serving a meaningful goal, he was willing to walk away from it without nostalgia. That's why his path often looks unpredictable from the outside. He doesn't cling to identities. He clings to purpose. The world missed this because it's easier to label a person than to understand a principle. She revealed that what truly anchors him is a sense of obligation to the future. Not fame, not praise, not even personal fulfillment. He feels accountable to generations he will never meet. That accountability shapes his urgency. It's why he pushes timelines others think are unrealistic. It's why delays frustrate him so deeply. In his mind, every year lost is a cost paid by someone else later. That perspective, she said, is heavy, and it's lonely. She spoke about joy, something rarely discussed in narratives about him. His joy doesn't come from applause or celebration. It comes in quiet moments when a problem finally yields, when a system begins to work, when a long-shot idea proves possible. Those moments don't last long, and he doesn't linger in them. He acknowledges them and moves on, not because he's ungrateful, but because the work isn't finished. Satisfaction, for him, is temporary. Responsibility is constant. She explained that many people think visionaries are detached from ordinary life, but she said her son notices small things deeply. He observes patterns in human behavior, inefficiencies in daily routines, overlooked details others ignore. Those observations feed his larger ideas. Big changes, she said, are often born from paying attention to the smallest frustrations. The world missed that his mind isn't always in the clouds, it's often grounded in practical reality. She revealed that forgiveness plays a quiet role in his life. He doesn't carry grudges easily, not because he forgets harm, but because resentment feels inefficient to him. Holding on to bitterness drains energy better spent solving problems. He learns what he needs to learn and releases the rest. That ability to let go, she said, protects his focus and his peace more than people realize. She spoke about fear again, but this time with clarity. Fear never vanished from his life. If anything, the stakes made it louder. But fear didn't get to vote. It could speak, warn, and inform, but it couldn't decide. Decisions were made through reasoning and values, not emotional avoidance. That discipline, she said, is rare and misunderstood. People think fearlessness is the absence of fear. She knows it's the mastery of it. She said the world often mistakes his directness for lack of care. In truth, she said, he values honesty so deeply that he avoids unnecessary softness. He believes clarity is kindness in the long run, even if it feels uncomfortable in the moment. He would rather deliver a hard truth than offer a comforting illusion. That approach creates friction, but it also creates progress. The world missed that his bluntness is rooted in respect for reality. She revealed something that surprised many. He measures success internally, not publicly. Headlines don't tell him whether a day was meaningful. Progress does. Learning does. Alignment with purpose does. He can walk away from praise as easily as he walks through criticism because neither defines him. What defines him is whether he moved something important forward. Even slightly, she spoke about legacy, not as something he obsesses over, but as something he accepts as a byproduct. He isn't trying to be remembered. He's trying to be useful. If history remembers him, that's incidental. If it forgets him but the work endures, that's enough. That humility, she said, is invisible because it doesn't announce itself, she concluded by returning to the question everyone kept asking her: what is the one thing the world missed? And she said it simply, without drama. They missed that everything he does flows from responsibility, not ego. From service, not self-glorification. From a deep, almost painful awareness that time is limited and problems are urgent. She said if people truly understood that, they might stop arguing about his personality and start engaging with the questions he's trying to answer. They might stop fixating on the man and start focusing on the mission. And perhaps, she added softly, they might even look inward and ask themselves what responsibilities they've been avoiding because they feel too heavy. She ended with this quiet truth: the most powerful force in his life was never intelligence, wealth, or fame. It was the refusal to live a small life when a meaningful one demanded effort. That refusal shaped everything, and with that, her message wasn't just a revelation about her son. It became a reflection on what it means to live deliberately. To choose responsibility over comfort, purpose over popularity, and long-term good over short-term ease, that was the one thing everyone missed.